I quite literally made this whole video and then realized it was not recording. Hi, I'm Lux and welcome to my channel. Hi there, I'm Lux and welcome to my channel. Hi, I'm Lux and welcome to my channel. Your patterns truly do come with you no matter where you go. That's not always a bad thing, right? Like you can have a lot of patterns that are great. They help you navigate the world. They are a part of how you show up in relationships, and you actually really like that, right? And there's also the patterns that are often hidden that keep us within our comfort zone, right? Which is why we even have a comfort zone. Because we have patterns that keep us there because there's some part of us that knows it's more uncomfortable to step outside of that. I will experience something within myself if I step out of that than if I just stay here. A pattern of comfort seeking in a way. But in that experience that I had and continue to have, I sort of plucked myself out of my context that was familiar and safe and moved myself directly into a completely different context. For me, it was completely different physical and geographical and cultural context. A lot of things shifted all at once. And I remember when I started the journey, I went from the US to Portugal, and I had decided that I wanted to volunteer at a hostel to start off because it just felt safer. There's sort of built-in community because they're expecting me to be there and they have a place for me to stay and I have a thing to do. Cool. All of that makes me feel like more secure as I go off on my own into the world. I had traveled before, but I would say by myself, I'd never done an international solo trip. Just packing up all my stuff, throwing it in storage, and jumping on a plane and going across the world. One thing I thought was cool is that when I got there, it was such an interesting feeling. I remember thinking like, wow, I was like just in another continent. This is such a weird feeling. It's like the world is so much closer than I thought, even though it is quite far. But, you know, yay for modern day transportation. I remember I got to the whole new country and started doing my volunteering. And I found my way to the new grocery store I was going to go to, and down to the beach and the ocean, which was awesome, and down into the little town because I was in Cascais, Portugal. Sorry. I remembered that because that leap was so big, I remember just feeling so much fear, like especially the couple of days right before it happened, and my room was all packed up, and I remember looking around and just being like, this whole thing freaks me out because it's definitely happening right now. And I'm definitely doing this. It's not just an idea in my head anymore. And I finally got there, and it's almost like I went kind of immediately into finding a new comfort zone. Like I had my little triangle of things: the grocery store, the beach, the part of town I like to go to, like the one coffee shop I would frequent, and then back to the hostel. Okay, maybe that's a trapezoid or something. What I saw in the first couple of weeks, because I was only actually in that place for 1 month before I moved on to my next part of the journey, was that I began feeling frustrated and bored, right? Because it wasn't a busy part of the season. The job was not hard at all. It was just front desk. It wasn't even cleaning. And there wasn't, that many people coming in or that many emails or anything. And I remember a couple of days, like literally nothing happened at all. And so there was a part of me that was like, oh, this is boring. Why did I do this? What's happening? My initial reaction was to think that maybe I chose the wrong place. Maybe I chose the wrong time of year. Or maybe something's wrong in the outside circumstance. Until I began to reflect a little more. And I realized I was the one that was keeping myself in a little pattern of movement around the town. I was the one that was keeping myself from going and seeing other things, going farther away from the hostel. And when I really reflected, I had to admit that I was afraid, right? I had made a big leap. I tried to find comfort because it was uncomfortable, but it was exciting and a challenge I wanted. And I was facing the next step outside of my comfort zone. That was scary. It required me to continue to face the fear, to continue to show up to the challenge. And that my pattern that had been somewhat invisible to me before was that I would do these sort of steps outside and then go and then pull back into comfort and try to stay there for a long time. And then, yeah, sure, I'd step out again, but like, nah, and I had to face that because it was really getting in the way of taking the opportunity that I had stepped into. And it really isn't about traveling, right? Like, that was just one way where I completely changed my environment and in all the ways, the place, the people, the language, like all the things right around me changed. And so I had all of those sort of invisible limitations come up in front of my face much more clearly because of all the things that changed. But that's not the only context in which you can change, right? Any shift in context, whether that is in our relationships, in our work environment, sure, geographically, maybe you move to a new town, in our like friend groups, right? In the hobbies that we show up to or ones that we begin. And even in our internal context of how we are beginning to show up for ourselves differently. Maybe setting a boundary. Maybe choosing not to be so self-critical, right? Like there's context in all ways in our life that can shift and change. But when we do that, we are confronted with everything that had kept us within the previous comfort zone. Essentially, our old identity, right? Our identity was tied to being within that comfort zone, and now we're shifting out of it. We moved into a new context. Now I'm confronted with the identity that I had and the things that went along with that, like how much capacity I thought I had, what I thought I was afraid of, what I thought was scary, how I relate to that feeling of fear or discomfort. And so really a new context is a catalyst. In whatever way we choose that new context, it's a catalyst for an opportunity to become aware of what is forming our current identity, and then a choice point on, do I want that? Do I want to remain there? Do I want to keep this? Or does it no longer serve me, right? So for example, when I was back home and I had lived in the same town for like 2 years at that point, and I remember that I had lived near the mountains, and I loved going hiking, I loved going up to the trails. And so when I first moved into town, I began exploring, right? I was facing the unknown, and it's not only scary, it can also be really exciting. Like, yay, I get to find new trails and things. So I would sort of established my places that I like to go. I realize now that as I look back, I found those things I was comfortable with, and then I literally just stuck with those for 2 years, even though I was not that far from a national park that I kept telling myself I wanted to go see. I really want to go see this. I know like a lot of my stories are about like going someplace. It's not just that, but like for me, like that's something that excites my soul. I like to see new places. And yet, even with that, I was stuck in my own patterns, right? I was stuck in my comfort zone of like, yeah, I made the big move, I did the thing, I found the trails, like, now let me stay in my little comfort zone of that stretch that I had done and not make me go farther than that, right? And literally, even after 2 years, I never made it to that national park. There was always something that kind of kept me from getting there that I didn't fully face and clearly didn't do. So it was partly like this sense of planning ahead, because you needed like a time ticket to get all the way into the national park, and I just would never remember. And then the times I did remember, I would like download the app again, but then the app was kind of confusing and it never seemed like it was available. I don't know, it was this whole thing, and it would frustrate me, and so I would just kind of drop it for a time, and I would be like, oh, I'll do it later. But when I was finally in a new context and had a short period of time where I could really do this exploration that I enjoyed, I had to see the pattern where I would get uncomfortable or frustrated or something, and I would tell myself, okay, I'll just put this down for now and I'll come back to it later. And later never happened. And who knows when I'll be back to that place to go to that national park? I really don't know. I may have completely missed the opportunity. But this past year, when I was in a whole new country and I was faced with the same pattern of, oh, this is scary, oh, this is uncomfortable, oh, this is frustrating in certain ways. Cool. I see that now. I see these little subconscious, unconscious things that happening that would sort of keep me in my patterns. But what do I want to do with it now? Right? What do I want to choose now? And I chose to face that discomfort and the frustration, because part of what was getting in the way too is that I had gone down to the bus station and I had asked them about how to get a ticket, and they said go to the kiosk, and I had already looked at that, and for some reason it didn't make sense to me. It didn't seem like it was giving me the right information, and also it was in a different language, all the things, right? And so I had gone inside to talk to a person, and they said basically go back outside. And I looked at it again, I'm like, I don't know, and so I left, right? Like, it was very similar to back in my hometown where I had tried to figure it out and then I dropped it. But I finally was at this place where I was like, you cannot miss this once in a lifetime opportunity, right? You made this big leap. Keep going, keep going. And like what this title says, right? You can't run from yourself, but you can show up to yourself differently. And it isn't about forcing yourself out of your comfort zone to just fry your nervous system all the time. It was this moment of choice where I said, okay, I know that this is uncomfortable and I got to go back and ask them again and face the frustration I have with feeling confused, because I hate that feeling, and the fear of like, okay, I'm going to go move farther away from my little safe spot of the hostel that was making me feel secure for being in a whole new country. And going to go farther out, and it reminds me that I'm out here by myself, right? But I went back, and it was like the second or third time, I forget. I kept going like, no, you're going to do it. You have to. You only have so much time. And like at a different point, a different person said like, oh, I'll just give you the ticket here. I'm like, okay, that's all I needed. And then I realized you could even get it on the bus. I don't know, it was the whole thing. And I went from Cascais, which is where I started and was based at, to Sintra, which is such a beautiful town, and I wouldn't have seen it if I just stayed in all the places that were in walking distance. So even though this lesson sort of came to me from completely changing my context, physically and culturally and all the things, that really isn't required, right? Kind of like what I said before. Any sort of context shift will provide the opportunity, like through discomfort, of being able to see and make visible where exactly are the edges of my comfort zone. Okay, I'm becoming very aware of them because I've begun to push against it. Even if it's a little bit, I begin to push against it. Ah, there it is. Okay, now that it's more visible to me and my conscious mind, what do I want to do about it? Cool. Now I have choice. Now I have the ability to make it change or stay the same or step outside, see how that is. Let it be an experiment. I love that too, letting ourselves have little experiments. Because another thing too about just having this reflection on the difference between what I did when I was back home versus what I did when I was traveling and like really facing the comfort zone was that when I was home, there was an element of that experience that felt like it was just working, right? Like we have this part of us that's like, yeah, this is all just working. Why would I change that? Why would I change what's working? But what's interesting is that it's working for the identity that got us to that moment, right? That got us to whatever that new normal is. And if there is a part of us somewhere within that is asking us to maybe step farther, maybe explore something new, what's working becomes then the limitation, right? It becomes the comfort zone. It becomes the edge that we have to choose to cross. Because everything else is on autopilot. Everything else is just normal, the way it is. So whenever we change our context, and in any of the realms of life, relationally, work, physically, internally, we bring to our awareness that choice. And I love that. And I think too, we can come to this practice of allowing that to be really exciting. Like, I've discovered a new thing. If we can get curious about it, we can see it as a doorway rather than a big brick wall, right? Because discomfort, especially if we avoid it, can become that. It can feel like a big brick wall that I can't get past. Rather than, I'm just aware of now a potential doorway if I'm willing to open the door, right? If I'm willing to open it, then it can become a doorway to something new. And we talk a lot about these things here on this channel, right? We're even exploring the possibility around relationship anarchy, which is a philosophy of doing relationships a completely different way, which will require a lot of facing the edge of your comfort zone and choosing what you want to do there. And I will say this too, it's not about, and I'm not encouraging you to just blast past your comfort zone all the time to the point of frying your nervous system. For me, in this time of traveling and that being what I was exercising as a way of growth and exploration, I learned the balance of when I was facing the comfort zone 2 steps beyond it, and when the comfort zone was a moment of restoration, that actually being in it was really helpful, and that I didn't need to go burn my nervous system to the ground. That's not sustainable, right? So you can also see it like that too. Like, this isn't just me saying just like, blah, push yourself to the edge. I feel like sometimes that's what people say, right? Motivational quotes about just like everything you want is beyond your comfort zone. It's like, yeah, okay. Some of it's also inside my comfort zone. And I like that too. And I get to have a balance. I get to move at my pace. So really, ultimately, it's not a question of where should I go or what should I change. You're not a project. It is simply, am I willing to see myself more clearly? Am I willing to meet what I find with compassion? Because there's always an element of our journey that's going to be us facing and being present with what is going on within us. In anything that's happening, we have our own experience of it. So especially around the context of the internal context of, say, boundaries or changing how we're talking to ourselves, that's like a prime example of, am I willing to meet this discomfort when I become more aware of what's happening? Because if we're going to change something, we automatically become much more aware of it, which could be kind of a painful process unto itself. And then meet it with compassion, meet it with curiosity, meet it with care, right? So yeah, so I'm kind of excited to hear about what context are you shifting right now? Maybe you're stepping into something new in some way. Maybe it's relationally. Maybe you're off on traveling adventures. Maybe it's internally and you're setting new boundaries. I'm really curious. Let me know in the comments. I will celebrate with you your big step. And join me here again for more conversations like this and many others. And I'm very proud of myself for facing the discomfort of the fact that I said this whole video already and it wasn't even recorded. So hopefully version 2 was just as good. Yes, let me know in the comments and subscribe for more of me and these conversations and these topics. Okay, talk to you soon. Bye.